Na-recorded
Okay.
na.
A pleasant, a pleasant evening for everyone, and especially to our professor Michael Luis Arcon. And we are the group 4 of CE 12, Section 12, and we are here to discuss the formation of minerals, the intended learning outcomes. Here are the intended. The students shall be able to identify the different ways of forming minerals. Second, state the factors affecting the foundation of minerals. And lastly, define coal, coal tar, and petroleum. And here is my classmate who will discuss the uh, minerals. Thank you.
Minerals. Minerals are crystalline, solid substances, meaning the atoms making up the minerals are arranged in order, a three-dimensional structure. Some example of minerals are calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, sodium, potassium, chloride, and sulfur. Um, Now let's proceed on the different ways of mineral formation. First is the formation of hot materials. A rock is a collection of minerals. Magma is melted rock inside Earth, a molten mixture of substances that can be hotter than 1000 degrees Celsius. Magma cools slowly inside Earth, which gives mineral crystals time to grow large enough to be seen clearly. First is granite. It's the rock that formed from slowly cooled magma, containing the mineral quartz, which represent the clear color, and the pla, plagioclase feldspar, which has a color of shiny white, and the potassium feldspar with the color pink, and the biotite with the color black. Next is the formation of from solution. Water on Earth, such as the water in the oceans, contains chemical elements mixed into a solution. Various processes can cause these elements to combine to form solid minerals. It means some minerals na nanggagaling sa water, like the salt water, nagpo-form siya ng mineral. Naghahalo yung chemical elements from the bottom of the ocean to the seawater, tapos nakakabuo siya ng solid mineral deposit. Solid mineral deposits. Next is the mineral from salt water.
Minerals from salt water. When water evaporates, it leaves behind a solid precipitate of minerals. So, the example of this is if you have a glass of water with minerals, when the water evaporates, the dissolved mineral particles will left behind. Why? It's simply because water can only hold certain amount of dissolved minerals and salt. Mono Lake in California or the Great Salt Lake in Utah contain many minerals precipitates. Some lakes such as Mono Lake in California or the Great Salt Lake in Utah. Next, the example is tufa towers. So, how the tufa towers form? Tufa towers form when calcium-rich spring water at the bottom of Mono Lake bubbles up into the alkaline lake. The tufa towers appear when the lake levels drops. These rock towers form when underwater spring rich in calcium mix with the water of the lake, which are rich in carbonates. The resulting reaction forms limestone. Minerals from underground water. Magma hits nearby underground water, which reacts with the rocks around to pick up dissolved particles. How do minerals form from hot underground water? Magma hits nearby underground. As the water flows through open space in the rocks and cools, it deposits solid minerals. The mineral deposits from form when minerals fills cracks in the solid are called veins. So as you can see in the picture, quartz veins form in these rocks. So how the quartz vein forms? The crack might form during folding of the rock in mountain building processes by shattering during tectonic events, by decrease in pressure during the uplift of rock, or because the rocks cools down and shrinks. Then the summary, mineral crystal that form when magma cools slowly are larger than crystal that forms when lava cools rapidly. Next na po.
Minerals can also form in several other ways. Precipitation from aqueous solution, example from hot water flowing underground, from evaporation of a lake or inland sea, or in some cases directly from seawater. Algae solution dissolves anything that has to deal with water, in which water is
Yan
salted,
eh.
which is, for example, from hot flowing underground or when evaporation concentrates iron in a lake or inland sea. These minerals are mainly found in the dry places, where the evaporation is high, where it dissolves with water with higher evaporation, which, which is mostly caused by the heat of the sun. Precipitation from gaseous emanations, example in volcanic regions. Emanation like in volcanic region produces gases like carbon dioxide, water vapor, sulfur dioxide, and etc. Like eruption of lava and ash, which is caused by magma rises. These minerals will turn into molten rocks. Metamorphism. Formations of new minerals directly from the elements within existing minerals under conditions of elevated temperature and pressure. This process is where minerals change or geologic structures comes from the heat, pressure, and chemical fluid. Weathering. Weathering is where rock minerals break into pieces, in which after it has broken into pieces, the erosion happens, where it will actually turn into sand. Organic formation. This is formed by the use of shells and teeth and bones by organisms. These organic materials are still called minerals because they can also form inorganically, and the reason why it can still form into mineral because it is not mainly produced through organic process. Next, next slide, environments, which means minerals are formed in our Earth's crust depends on its temperature and, and depth, where if it has low temperature, it may lead to precipitation from saline brine. Endogenetic or hypogene, deep-seated process in the interior of the Earth, where its process causes many major landform features, where it shapes all forces inside the Earth, like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and its movement shows sudden and slow movement. Exogenetic or hypergene, so surface processes at or near the Earth's surface as well as in the atmosphere and hydrosphere. Its forces act above the Earth's surface. It only created changes for over a period of thousand or million years. in which always shows slow movement above the surface. Next slide. In geologic environment where formation is taking place, the kinds of minerals that form depend on various factors such as temperature, pressure, the chemical activity of water present, the mobility and relative abundance of chemical elements. These factors are the ways on how these minerals formation are formed, where where temperature, pressure, and the chemical activity of water present and the mobility and relative abundance of chemical elements are the ways on how we can and how the mineral formation take place. Next slide. Two fundamental properties. Crystal structure. The geometric arrangement of the ions or atoms composing the minerals. This is the repeating arrangement of ions which compose of minerals. The chemical composition is an arrangement of different chemical elements which has different proportion, where each mineral also has its own chemical formula. Next.
Let us give an example for mineral. Coal is defined as carbonaceous matter produced by the compaction and hardening of altered plants remain, namely peat deposit. It is one of the most important primary fossil fuel, a solid carbon-rich material that is usually brown or black and most often occur in the stratified sedimentary deposits. Different varieties of coal arises because of differences in the kinds of plant material, degree of qualifications, and range of impurities. Although most coal occur in stratified sedimentary deposits, the deposits may later be subjected to elevated temperatures and pressure caused by igneous intrusion or deformation during orogenesis. Coke. Coke is a solid residue remaining after certain types of bituminous coals are heated to a high temperature out of contact with air until substantially all of the volatile constituents have been driven off. The residue is chiefly carbon, with minor amounts of hydrogen, nitrogen, sulfur, and oxygen. Also present in coke is the mineral matter in the original coal and chemically altered and decomposed during the coke process. In byproduct, coke impurities are baked off at between 1,800 to 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit to leave almost pure carbon. The oven used must admit no oxygen to avoid reaction with other elements that could leave impurities. As the coke is softened to a liquid but solidified to a porous material on cooling. The gases produced in the coke process are piped up to a byproduct plant where can be collected for other uses. Blast furnace injection. In the 1960s, saw the injection of pulverized coal when melting steel or iron in a blast furnace. This provided additional energy to burn off gases and prevent iron oxide, as well as reduce coke consumption. By the 1990s, coal use became the norm. So typically, coal preparations involve dry and grinding coal to a tiny particles of less than 1 mm for injection. The coal particles are separated from released gases in a cyclone. The waste gas, and sometimes natural gas, can be used for drying additional coal, which is generally kept between 6% moisture content. Inert gases are used to minimize the risks of fire or ignition of the coal particles. Let us go to coal tar. Coal tar, principal liquid produced resulting from the carbonise of coal. The heating of coal in the absence of air at temperatures ranging from about 900 to 1200 degrees Celsius. Low temperature tars result when coal, peat, lignite, or wood are carbonized at temperatures not exceeding 700 degrees Celsius. Tar acids, phenolic compounds that react with caustic soda to form water-soluble salts, are extracted from coal tar after it has been distilled. Tar bases are alkaline constituents of distilled oil remaining after tar acids have been removed. One of the bases that is recovered in pyridine, a colorless nitrogenous liquid that has a pungent odor and produces derivatives that are pharmaceutical value. Pitch is the material remaining after the removal of pyridine and other distillates. It is useful in the aluminum industry for the manufacture of electrodes. Um, like crude oil and natural gas, petrochemicals are composed primarily of carbon, hydrogen, and are called hydrocarbons. If in the molecule the carbon atoms are linked by a single bond, the molecules are said to be saturated.
Okay. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Petroleum. Um, Petroleum, petrol, and diesel are obtained from a natural resources called petroleum. When I heard the word petroleum, uh, the, the first thing that comes in our minds is oil and fuel. And petroleum comes from the word petra, which means rock, and oleum, which means oil. Petroleum, as it says there, that it is formed from organisms living in the sea, specifically the zooplankton and algae. Uh, these organisms died, and their bodies will settle at the bottom of the sea and got covered with layers of sand and clay, specifically the sedimentary rock, and they are subjected to have an intense heat and pressure. And I'm discussing how the petroleum were formed, and over the million years of over the million of years, the absence of air, high temperature, high pressure transformed the dead organisms into petroleum and natural gas. So when making a petroleum, it took years to make petroleum, and by definition, nature petroleum is naturally occurring liquid found beneath the Earth's surface that can be refined into fuel. It is also called fossil fuel, which means it is created by the decomposition of the organic matter over millions of years. As I said earlier, that uh, petroleum needs petroleum takes time to make, and the purpose of petroleum, we see that it uses fuel to power vehicles, heating units, and machines, as well as it can be converted into plastics and often materials. Yeah. Okay, next slide. As we can see in the next slide, I will discuss the origin and occurrence of petroleum in India, where we can have an understanding where does the petroleum come from, and uh how did they found petroleum? Okay. Petroleum has an organic origin, and it was found in sedimentary basins, shallow depression, and in the seas. As I said earlier, we can see the petroleum in the seas. Most of the oil reserves in India are associated with anticline, which means arch arch of stratified rock on which the layers bend downward in the opposite directions from the crest, and the fall troughs in the sedimentary rock formations of tertiary times, about 3 million years ago. So, so when making petroleum, it took 3 million years. So, so some recent sediment sediment less than 1 million years also show evidence of incipient oil. When we say incipient oil, uh, it means the beginning or the budding of an oil. Oil oil was also a natural gas in India, and it is occur in sedimentary rocks. So 42% of the country of is covered with sedimentary rocks. So that large percentage, we can see that India is uh, we can see India has a lot of petroleum, and because because of the sedimentary rocks. And however, even so, India was a very significant producer of petroleum at the time of independence and remains so until Mumbai High started production on a large scale. Uh, that's all. Uh, in conclusion, we see how much we see how does how does mineral was formed in our discussion, and we are the group 4, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you. Isang picture na. Charot.